I tell a lot of people, look, if you wanted me dead at that moment,
That
he
would have
would
been
have
the
done
outcome.
it. Yeah.
Wow.
But he brought me the phone to call 911, and he told me it's okay. It's okay, I'm going to get him. But he didn't understand what was going on at the moment. So phone wouldn't work. My son brought me the phone. I asked him to go get my phone, my cell phone, dialed 911. 911 came. That moment, I realized I could move, and I went and looked at myself in the mirror to see how bad it was, and because I knew the damage that this gun had the power to do.
Shannon, I can't even imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really a miracle that you're here talking to us today.
It is. It is. However, I looked at myself and thought, it's not that bad.
Okay.
I mean, it was, but it could have been absolutely horrendous.
It could have killed you.
Yeah.
Hi there. Thank you for joining the Communities Connected podcast. I'm your host, Jason Hopcus, founder and president of the Connection Project and the president and CEO of Nami-Arapahoe-Douglas counties. The Connection Project began with a single goal: to convene communities for conversations that matter. Real people, real life, together. Today, my guest is Shannon Orendorf. Recently, I interviewed Trent Orendorf of TLC, The Life Changer. Trent bravely shared his story with us about how easily life can unravel, resulting in dangerous outcomes. You may recall in the midst of a mental health crisis, he accidentally shot his wife, Shannon. Since that interview, we have received many questions wanting to know more about Trent's story, specifically folks who are curious about his wife. Today, it is my honor and privilege to welcome Trent's wife, Shannon Orendorf, who graciously has agreed to come and share her side of the story with us. Shannon is a powerful force who has dedicated herself to making an impact in the community she serves. She is a corporate executive, mother of 4, and devoted spouse of 17 years. Through her lived experience, she is passionate about building support systems for women and family victims of crimes caused by mental illness. Shannon does this valuable work alongside her husband, Trent, at the TLC Life Changer. Shannon, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us, how did you get here?
How did I get here? Wow, that's a loaded question. With Trent and our story, how did I get in life? In general, I met Trent. We met a long time ago. Like I said, we've been married for 17 years,
Right.
been together for 19. We met in Vail, Colorado. I'm a Colorado native, so I grew up in Aurora. I was raised by wonderful parents, have an older sibling. Did the normal stuff in life, sports, friends, activities. Married into my fast forward several years. Married Trent, started dating and a family together, and we didn't have kids right away. We stayed together for quite a while, built our careers, built foundation, and then later had children. So when I met Trent, our life was great. Trent was phenomenal. I always tell people that he pursued me so hard, and he finally, one day, he would always tell me, I'm going to marry you someday, I'm going to marry you someday, and finally did it. So we got married, fast forward, had 4 children, and we've been married for 17 years. But in the midst of that, in 2010, our lives were forever changed.
Right.
Due to the mental health and episode and incident that we experienced.
Right. So I want you to be comfortable with sharing this story, and obviously we've heard Trent's side of it. The questions we got in the last interview consistently was, well, why did you stay? And before we get there, can you maybe give us a little more context for people who don't necessarily understand mental illness or how it presents itself? I know from talking to Trent that life didn't unravel in a day. It sounds like that was
Right.
an episode that built upon itself. Can you give our viewers some context about what happened and how life did unravel ultimately?
Absolutely. So it's such a misconception about mental health and the stigma that goes around it.
Sure.
And myself, I was in that, right? So I had no idea what mental health looked like. My picture of it, my view of it what I knew about it before I had somebody who was affected by it was vastly different, right? So what it looked like before that day is my idea of a person who had mental health issues was someone who couldn't contribute successfully in society, that wasn't a really capable human being. And I'm sad to say that I thought those things, but that's the truth, right?
Well, I often say people don't learn about mental health until it hits their home, and even then they often don't.
Right.
So I think that your misconceptions about it are pretty spot on to where most people come from unless they have experience with it.
Absolutely. So with that said, how it affected us and the things that took place and that led up to that, like Trent said, it didn't unravel in a day.
Right.
And a lot of people will say, I've gotten the question a million times, you're not the first one, why did I stay? Right? So I'll answer that, but I'll take you back a little bit further.
Please.
So when I met Trent, he was, and still is, a phenomenal human being. He was very kind. He was very humble. He was I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. I had a history of I didn't pick the best men out there. So when I met Trent, and he was so kind and so gracious and such a gentleman, I kept thinking, okay, when's the shoe going to drop?
Right.
But it never did, right? He was that way consistently.
Okay.
And our lives continued. They went on for a while. He was in sales. He did high-end IT sales in high pressure, lots of stress. However, he had a series of events that happened in his life. The last one that happened was in 2006, his mom died.
Okay.
It was pretty significant in his life, given the fact that he didn't have a father. His father was not present in his life. He has a father, he just wasn't raised by him and wasn't present. So when his mom died, it really took a blow to him.
Right.
So with that said, I thought that that's what was spiraling his behaviors, his reckless behaviors.
Okay.
Trent lived in the mania, which is also a misconception about mental health. A lot of people don't understand that mental health, you can just live in the mania, or you can just live in the depression.
So tell us what living in the mania looked like for you all.
Oh, Trent was the life of the party.
Right.
He was the bigger the better, right? The more things we could do, it was go, 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 go. It was, let's go here, let's go to vacation, let's do this, let's go shopping. It was constant, the life of the party. When I say that, it was from little things to such as fantasy football, right? He got a fantasy football team together, and he would host fantasy draft parties, and it was just constant party, party, party.
Right.
So I thought, okay, that's part of him just dealing with his grief and part of just who he is. So I didn't realize that that was mania. So again, this all took place, his signs and symptoms began to present themselves for years. They didn't happen overnight, as we've said several times. So it's been a conglomerate of issues and time. So what took place is he lived in the mania. He would then absolutely, by nature, bipolar, he's diagnosed bipolar. You have to, what they call, you have a down or a downer, and you go in to self-medicate. Every person who has a mental illness self-medicates in some way, shape, or form. Whatever that self-medication may be for you, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's...
It can be sleep.
It can be sleep. And so they self-medicate to get out of that depression. So then they'll be in a depression, they'll self-medicate, then they'll come back up to the mania standpoint. With that said, during this time, he wasn't sleeping. He went through periods of time where he wasn't sleeping. Again, I thought, well, it's his job, the loss of his mom. We had moved during that time. Several big life-changing events had happened. What a lot of people don't know about our story is I didn't just sit around. We didn't just sit around, right?
Okay.
We sought help. Trent sought help from our primary care doctor, and he didn't doctor shop, what's known as doctor shopping. He went to our same primary care person for about a period of 3 years.
Wow.
Where he was saying, okay, this is going on, and he would present his symptoms. And then they would diagnose him with, okay, you have sleep apnea. And then that didn't work. You know, we got the whole 9 yards, CPAP machine. We had oxygen at one point in our house. That didn't work. They said, okay, you have severe anxiety. Okay, you have severe sleep deprivation. It was always something other
never
than
what it actually was. Right.
Which is what I've done talks on, and one of my big points with people is there's a difference between misdiagnosed and missed, M-I-S-S-E-D, diagnosed.
Right.
And Trent was misdiagnosed, meaning they missed the diagnosis
altogether. Right.
So what had happened and took place is that led up, it was a series of events. Yes, he had lost his job just prior to this event. However, that's not the actual, I think it was just the straw that kind of broke the camel's back.
Right.
But that's not at all really what took place. Now, if I had been educated, if I had known about mental health, if I had known the signs and symptoms and triggers that I was looking for, I absolutely could have helped him, or we could have helped him sooner.
So, in fairness, him being misdiagnosed didn't allow you the opportunity to learn more or to get educated about how you could support him. So, you didn't have the tools either at that point, right?
Absolutely, I did not.
Which is unfortunate,
Right.
and imagine that you could have had a different outcome completely had you had some different tools.
Absolutely.
So take me back to that day, and I want you to feel comfortable with whatever we talk about here, but and share what you're willing to. But Trent's told us his side of the story. Tell us what you remember about that day. I'm sure your details may be different than his, but
My details are very different, just mostly because I was there. I recall it, right?
Right.
And he was in very much of an episode.
Right.
But that day we had woken up very early. We were actually getting ready to go to church, and we had woken up, and Trent had been up. As a matter of fact, he had woke up and had been not sleeping for about 4 days.
oh wow.
And he had been taking Ambien and, like I say, like Skittles, and he still wasn't sleeping.
Wow.
And I didn't know that. I didn't realize he had been taking Ambien. He was just trying to get to sleep. And at one point in the morning, I woke up, and I was pregnant at the time with our second daughter.
Sure.
And sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night due to pregnant things, and I woke up and he was laying there, and I said, "You still haven't slept?" And he said, "No." I said, "All right, well, if you're not better, if you're not feeling good by noon," I don't know why I picked noon, I just said noon tomorrow, "then we're going to the doctor." Well, unfortunately, we never made it there.
Right.
But happened is he had gone down in our living room. Our youngest son, who was down there, he said he was going to take a shower. I said, okay. He went upstairs to go take a shower. I then heard a loud crash. What it almost sounded like he had fell through the shower. We had big glass shower doors back then.
Okay.
And it almost like he had fell through the glass, or like the TV had fallen. It was that big of a shatter.
Right.
And I thought, my goodness, what has happened? And we have a dual staircase. He talked about that at the time. And and at the top of the dual staircase, there was a ledge, a half ledge. So as I was walking up and I was calling his name, and he then turned around the corner and shot. I didn't have time to say, "Trent, it's me. Trent, stop. Trent, don't." It was just, I turned around, he turned around, the shot, and I got shot.
Wow. What was that like? I can't even imagine.
I remember the entire impact. I remember saying to him as he shot me, "You shot me." And the power, it was a double odd buck shotgun, and which the bullets are meant to shatter, like they're meant to just
Right.
shred.
Right.
And it was my gun. It was my shotgun. So I knew the damage it could do.
Right.
Therefore, when he shot me, I had flew back. I had lost consciousness for a period of time. For how long, I don't know.
Okay.
When I came back to, I was laying face down, and my son was over me, and I could hear Trent still kind of yelling at people. He was hallucinating. And at that time, I screamed at him to bring me the phone, and I said, I need to call 911. And I just laid there, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And I'm not going to cry, but please just let me get my son out of here.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like for you.
Because he's so little, he can't even open the doors.
Right.
Like, if I'm not going to make it, just let him get out of here.
Wow.
And so I laid there and I thought, okay. And I wiggled my toes and I thought, all right, I can move my feet.
Good news there.
Good news. I'm good. I can get up. So Trent brought me the phone. And for whatever reason, the phone wasn't working. I don't know if it had been through some trauma, whatever. So I tried to dial 911. But at that moment, at that very moment, and what a lot of people don't understand, because they weren't in the house, they weren't there, they didn't see him, they don't understand that I knew it wasn't Trent.
Right, you weren't dealing with your husband that day.
I was not dealing with my husband at that moment. So he brought me the phone, and I tell a lot of people, look, if you wanted me dead at that moment,
that
he
would have been the
did
outcome.
Yeah.
Wow.
But he brought me the phone to call 911, and he told me it's okay. It's okay, I'm going to get him. But he didn't understand what was going on at the moment. So phone wouldn't work. My son brought me the phone. I asked him to go get my cell phone, dialed 911. 911 came. That moment, I realized I could move, and I went and looked at myself in the mirror to see how bad it was, and because I knew the damage that this gun had the power to do.
Shannon, I can't even imagine that. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really a miracle that you're here talking to us today.
It is. It is. However, I looked at myself and thought, it's not that bad.
Okay.
I mean, it was, but it could have been absolutely horrendous.
It could have killed you.
Yeah. So, and it got me in the side of my neck. A lot of the reports say my shoulder, but it was actually the side of my neck.
Okay.
So it missed my main jugular artery. I mean, it missed everything. I had 9 bullets travel through my body. 9. And all of them missed my bones, my spine, major arteries. They all went through soft tissue.
You are clearly living right.
I am. So, with all that said, picked up myself. At that moment, I realized, okay, I've now called 911. They now know I've been shot. They now know my husband has a gun. This is not good. I'm going to have to get out of here, or he's going to end up dead, because they're not going to come in and get me in what they feel is a hostage situation. Right. They're going to have to take him out in order to feel like I'm safe. So I need to leave. So at that moment, I had gone downstairs and I had met Trent in the kitchen. We kind of collided in the kitchen, and he was holding the gun in the kitchen, and he was holding it against his chest, and I said, Trent, give me the gun. And he said, I can't. And I said, give me the gun. But I will never forget his eyes and what I was looking at, and he was clearly not there.
Wow. And
at that moment, I realized, okay, it's time to go. So I opened the garage door. I then at that moment realized, okay, if he's not with it, I can't back up his car and him think maybe somebody's stealing his car. So at that, I shoved my son into our garage cabinets, and I told him not to move until I came back to get him or the cops came back to get him. Because I was afraid that if I backed out Trent's car, he thought somebody was stealing his car.
Right.
He'd come out shooting.
Right.
I had the wherewithal to duck. My young son
Right. So you did
wouldn't
what
know
you
any
needed
better.
to protect him.
Right. So I backed out the car. When Trent didn't come outside, I went and got my son and my dog out of my backyard because I knew the SWAT team was coming and there's no way my dog would have allowed them to come in the backyard. So I put him in our car, drove to my parents' house. In the meantime, stopped and saw the fire department that was waiting for me. And I said to them, you're looking for me. And I'll never forget the look on their faces was sheer, like, shock. Like, yes, we are. And
you're driving.
And you're driving. So I said, they started to get out of the car. I said, look, I'm not leaving my son nor my dog here. So you can either follow me to my parents' house or not. And so I drove to my parents' house, and they, bless their hearts, I mean, I just erupted their lives as well, and broke in, and just walked into their house and immediately said, I've been shot. And my dad said, who shot you? And I said, Trent. And my dad just held me in his arms and
Wow.
comforted me while my mom called 911, and then 911 came and got me. So
really, that day has changed everything.
it did.
So let's talk about, I know that the scenes of how that played out were lengthy and probably graphic, and we don't have to go into that. But so there's a couple of things I want to explore with you. So being that he was misdiagnosed and you didn't get the proper, diagnosis and tools and training, that certainly played into all of this. I know that Trent ended up in the judicial system after
Yes.
this, and that's taken some time to play out. I really want to talk about, tell me how that process playing out has affected you and your family. What's come since?
What's come since from then is a lot of growth. Our marriage is stronger than ever before. Like you said, why did I stay?
Right.
My first reaction wasn't to stay. I mean, that's human nature.
Right.
I didn't want to stay at first. But I didn't want to stay not because he shot me. I was never afraid of Trent. I'm still not afraid of Trent.
Right.
I'm not even afraid of guns. That's not the issue there, right? The issue was I didn't want to stay because of the reckless behavior that had gone on and had been going on for years that led up to that. So how this has changed now for me, I mean, obviously it upset it completely. You ripped out my home, my husband from the home. He ended up, like you said, in the judicial system, and then he was down at Colorado Mental Health in Pueblo for several years, and rightly so, right? He had to do what he needed to do, but he also got rehabilitated in that time through Colorado Mental Health. But during that time, I was a single married mom.
Right.
And so I raised my daughter lived, she survived. She's healthy and happy to this day, and I raised those two. I had a lot of help and support, but more importantly, what I did is I'll never forget the first day that he was diagnosed when I heard, oh, well, he's bipolar type 2. And I went and Googled bipolar type 2, and up came on the screen five signs that you're bipolar. Mm-hmm. And I went,
it clicked every box.
Absolutely. And I thought, this is him. This is my husband.
Right.
And so from that point on, I knew and we knew what we were dealing with. We finally had an answer. Mm-hmm. I finally had something that I could say, this is why you're behaving the way that you are.
Right.
And now we can move forward, right? So what that looks like for me today and what it looks like and how it affected us for the years to come is obviously I had to raise our kids. Obviously I had to help him. Obviously we had to work through all of the judicial stuff. However, beyond that, it really put a passion and a desire in me to educate people on mental health and mental illness, because there's such a stigma surrounding it that, like I said in the very beginning, that you can't be a successful human being in society and a contributing member of society if you have a mental illness.
Right.
And that's so untrue.
Absolutely.
And mental illness can range anywhere. There's hundreds of mental illnesses. It can be from ADHD, it can be from bipolar, it can be from, dual personality, it can be
And it presents
anything.
itself differently in everybody.
It absolutely does. So whether or not you're dealing with it now or dealing with it in the past, it's important, and what I did is research the diagnosis. You've got to understand the diagnosis that you've been given. And then what we did and how we worked on it and what led up to it is we sat and decided, okay, here's Trent's early, middle, and late warning signs. What do those look like in a person?
Right.
What do those look like in a community as far as him being out? What are his triggers? And so we worked together as a family. Him and I put together what I call non-negotiables, right? Mm-hmm. My non-negotiables as far as it goes with his mental health and his mental illness. And we abide by those today. So I continued to push
So really,
through.
it's taken a village.
Yeah, it has taken a village to help do this. But, and shortly after years later, he started to come home, be rehabilitated back in the community. At first, it wasn't widely received, my husband back in the community. I understood people's fear. I didn't dismiss that.
And you didn't leave your community. You stayed in the same place.
I did.
Yeah.
I did until it got to a point where we left, not because of our community. We left just because of a better decision and different neighborhood to be in. But ultimately, I understood and respected people's fear.
Right.
But I have a saying, and I still say it today, I can't process this for you.
Right.
I couldn't process it for them.
Well, somebody else's fear is not yours.
Right.
So I love all of this and have so appreciated our time. If you had to give others who might be going through, something similar that they don't really recognize, what are some key things you think somebody might do to not get misdiagnosed?
If I would have to say that, Jason, I would absolutely tell people you need to trust your gut, right? So that gut feeling that you have that says something's not right.
Pay attention.
Pay attention. Right. And question your doctor, right? So if you don't feel like you're getting the right answer, get a second and a third and a fourth until you feel like, okay, this makes sense with what I'm feeling, or this is what, so these are what's happening, so this makes sense with the diagnosis you're giving. Pursue it, push it. I call it micromanaging your healthcare. You have to micromanage your own healthcare.
Right.
And so my advice to them and as a family is that don't stop. Educate yourself. Don't give up. And when it does happen to your family or your friends or a coworker, because chances are we're all affected by mental health in some way.
We all have a brain.
We all also know somebody, probably, who is affected by mental health.
Correct.
And so what are you going to do with that, right? What are you going to do with that information? Are you going to shun them? Are you going to distance yourself? Or maybe are you going to educate yourself so you can reach out a little bit more and support them in the ways that they need the support?
I think that's great information, and thank you for sharing that. So as we wrap up here, what's next for the Orendorfs?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know?
Wherever the sky's the limit. We've got a lot going on.
You
right?
do.
We have a lot going on. So we are finishing our book. That will come out here shortly.
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, Trent will be speaking. He speaks several places. Hopefully his dream is someday I'll join him alongside of him full time. We'd love to travel and just, help. Our hearts and our passion is just to help anybody, right? If we can help one person not have to experience what we experienced, not that it wasn't good, because It was. It forever changed us. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody else,
Right.
but yet it's made us greater people.
Well, you've tried to turn pain into purpose. And I think that when we have challenging things happen, that, you have a choice. You either let it destroy you or you move forward and find whatever gift it has to bring you. I love all of that. And I do hope you continue to share your story. And thank you for being with us, for allowing us to close the circle, and bravely sharing your side of the story. I'm in awe of you.
Thank you.
So as we wrap up, what's one thing you're grateful for today?
I'm grateful for, honestly, I'm grateful for my experiences. I think that my experiences mold me into who I am today. And it creates the strength and the courage, and it allows me to move forward, and like you said, with a purpose.
I love that, and I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you
So,
for being here.
Thank you for having me.